शङ्करांशभूम शङ्करार्यपीठसद्गुरून् शुद्धसत्त्वभासुरान् सुवर्त्मनीतभूसुरान् सर्वभूतसौख्यदान् क्षमाकरान् यतीश्वरान्
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रीहरिं परमानन्दम् उपदेष्टारमीश्वरं व्यापकं सर्वलोकानां कारणं तं नमाम्यहम् परोक्षानुभूतिर्वै प्रोच्यते मोक्षसिद्धये सद्भिरेव प्रयत्नेन वीक्षणीया मुहुर्मुहुः. So, continuing the method of perceiving the highest truth is being spoken of here, and how practically it can be done is being stated here. So in the previous class we had seen two particular shlokas where the exact method of analyzing the cause and effect that has been taught. I'll just go over that again and then continue on the today's class, today's shloka. Karanam vyatirekena puman adau vilokayet anvayena punastadhi karye nityam pashyati karyehi karanam pashyet paschat karyam visarjayet karanatvam tatho gachet avashishtam bhaven munihi. So in these shlokas, the cause and effect have been mentioned, but then the cause, that is the causehood and the effecthood, they are both dependent on each other, so relative to each other. So when we say something is a cause, it is only relative to the effect, and the effect is also relative only to the cause. So first the cause has to be seen as producing the effect, and the effect has to be seen as dependent on the cause, and without the cause the effect can't be there. So the true nature of the effect is the cause itself. So by that way we have to negate the effect. By negating the effect, what remains over is just the cause, and after negating the effect, the named cause is also redundant, so that also has to be given up. So what remains is just the pure cause without the named cause, and without even the idea of potential effect also. So this is the idea. In the same way, the Brahman, which is the cause of the world, has to be seen as really not a cause at all, because the world has to be seen as non-different from Brahman, and without Brahman, the effect, that is the world, cannot exist at all. So the world has to be negated that way, and the Brahman has to be retained, but then the causehood of Brahman will be given up. So this is the method shown here. So what happens then is, the one who is doing this analysis, he can't negate himself. So that means when we say he, the body-mind complex is also included, but then by the analysis he has to include the body-mind complex also within the world, and realize that the body-mind complex also is actually Brahman alone in truth. So he remains over as Brahman without being, which can't be negated at all. So that is the idea. So now entering the 140th shloka, bhavitam tivra vegena yadvastu nishchayatmana pumanstadhi bhavet shigram gneyam bhramaraketavat. So here, when this concept has been repeatedly with great focus again and again, it is thought over, then there will be a time will come when the thought will become so very strong that it will become the realized truth itself. So that is the goal of this practice. So bhavitam tivra vegena, so with lot of force and focus, if this thought is held with order, dirgha kala. So in the Yoga Shastra there is a sutra, satu dirgha kala nairantaryena satkara sevito drida bhumihi. So the thought becomes so very strong and deep rooted when it is carried out with order. Three conditions are given: dirgha kala, it has to be done for a very length of time, and then Nairantariyana, without gaps. So it has to be done for a very long time, but intermittent gaps should not be there. And also it has to be done with a lot of order, that is a lot of devotion, liking and all that. So when that happens, the subject matter of that dhyanam will become very, very deep rooted. So that is the idea here also. Bhavitam tivra vegena yadvastu nishchayatmana. So with lot of conviction also it has to be done. So when such a thing happens, it finally transforms itself into realization. Puman stadhi bhavet chigram gneyam brahmarakitavate. So the aspirant over a time becomes Brahman itself. That is, he realizes himself to be none other than Brahman. And for that, the example of the Brahmarakita is given. So the Brahmarakita is a very popular example in Vedanta. Even in Bhagavatam it is there. Brahmarakita. So here a wasp catches hold of a prey, and then it doesn't kill it, but then it paralyzes it, and then it takes it to its nest and keeps it there alive. And then the idea is to make it a food for its larvae. But then the prey, which is a small insect or a small worm, that out of fear of the wasp, it keeps thinking of the wasp again and again and for a long time, and then it itself transforms into a wasp. So that is the idea of behind the example. Brahmarakitavate. It seems Ramana Maharshi has seen this kind of thing. We don't know how far it is true, but then they have recorded it somewhere. So this is a very popular example given in the Vedanta text. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. That is the idea behind this. What has been thought of with lot of faith, focus, and all that, the person becomes that itself. So here in the commentary, we have got a lot of details in the commentary. Nanu vicharajanya aparokṣajnanena munehe brahmatvam bhavatu nama parantu parokṣajnaninaha katham bhaved ityashankya tīvra bhavanaya parokṣajnaninopi brahmatvam bhaved iti sadrishtantamaha bhavitamiti. So the question is, okay, with lot of vichara and all that, aparokṣajnana happens. We don't deny that or object to that. So a person will become Brahman. He realizes himself to be Brahman. Let it happen. But then what about those aspirants who are only having the parokṣajnana, that is indirect knowledge, not the direct knowledge or direct realization. They have got only the indirect knowledge, that is a kind of intellectual conviction. So what is the case of these people? So for that, the answer is given in this shloka. Katham bhaved ityashankya tīvra bhavanaya parokṣajnaninopi brahmatvam bhavet. So by a lot of focus and conviction, even the parokṣajnani can realize himself to be Brahman over a period of time. Ayam bhavaha. Yadyapi parokṣajnanena pramastragata avarana nivartau satyamapi pramegatam avaranam na nivartate. Tathapi nishchayatmana nishchayayukta buddhimata purushena yadvastu sachidanandam brahma tīvravegena aharnisham brahmakar vrittya bhavitam chintitam tadvastu gneyam aparokṣena gnatum yogyam brahma shigram achirena puman bhavet. So the Acharya gives the difference between parokṣajnana and aparokṣajnana. Yadyapi parokṣajnanena pramatragata avarana nivartau. So parokṣajnana results in the aspirant knowing himself as distinct from the body-mind complex. So that much is achieved in the parokṣajnana. But then that much is not enough for the Vedantic liberation. So for that, the aparokṣajnana has to happen. And what is the extra thing that happens in the aparokṣajnana? Prameyagata avaranam na nivartat. The defect of prameyagata avarana not going, that is, the prameya is Brahman. So Brahman is what is to be known, and the realization of the identity between oneself and Brahman, that has not happened in the aparokṣajnana. So aparokṣajnanam achieves that also, that is one realizes the aikyam, that is the aikyam knowledge between himself, between the tatpadam, tvam-padam and the tatpadam. So in the Paroksha Jnana, the tvam-pada viveka has happened, whereas the tatpada aikyam has not happened. So that will happen only in the Aparoksha Jnana, and that alone will result in mukti, Vedantic mukti. So, tathapi nishchayatmana, that is a person with so much of conviction, nishchayatmana buddhimata purushena, a person with this sharp intellect, and it has to be very conviction, the conviction has to be very strong, and it has to be sincerely conducted. Purushena, yadvastu sachidanandam brahma, Tivra Vegena, Aharnisham Brahmakara Vritya. So for the word Tivra Vega, the Acharya comments that it has to be done day and night. In the universe, Brahmakara Vritya. So the Akandakara Vritti has to be a kind of the simulation. That simulation has to happen, and that will alone result in realization. So Brahmakara Vritya Bhavitam Chintitam Tadvastu Gneyam is Brahman. In the 13th chapter of the Gita also, Gneyam Yatat Pravakshyami Yajñātva Amritamashnate Anadimat Param Brahma Nasattan Nasaduchyate. After having described the Kshetram, the Kshetrajna, the true nature of the Kshetrajna, that has to be taught. And for that, the starting is Gneyam Yatat Pravakshyami Yajñātva Amritamashnate. Once a person knows the realizes the Gneyam, Gneyavasu is Brahman, he becomes liberated. Amritamashnate. So for that, the definition of that name is given as Anadimat Param Brahma Na Sat Na Asaduchyate. So that Brahman is Anadi. It doesn't have a beginning at all. It's Anadi, Anadimat Param Brahma. It is supreme. It can't be said to be existent or non-existent. So the existent and non-existent, these two things happen only with the case of the created objects. For example, a pot, before it's being created, it is non-existent, and now after it's being created, it comes to be called as existent. The pot is, but then after the pot is destroyed, then there is no longer there is no way we can say that the pot continues to exist. So then we say it doesn't exist. So existence and non-existence happens only with created things. But Brahman is not such a thing. So the shloka there says that it is na sat na asat. And Bhagavad gives a very good explanation also there. He says that the word Brahman, so when you cannot say it is existent and non-existent, what can you say about Brahman? You can't say anything about Brahman because you can't give it a name. So if you can't use any word for Brahman. So for that, Bhagavad gives an explanation that words can be used only when these four conditions are met. That is, there should be some. It should belong to some species, jati. Then it has to have some guna, that is attribute. Then it has to have some kriya, some action. Then some sambandha, some connection. So with connection, we can give a name. We can use a name like, for example, an estate owner. A person is connected, even though we do not know the name of the person, we say that by connecting his relationship with the estate, he is the owner. So we use the word estate owner. So this kind of thing, for example, with kriya, a driver or a cook or whatever. So guna is a tall person or a very fat man or a stout one or a fair complexioned one. So these things are all possible. Then species also. It belongs to the bovine species or a cat or a bird or whatever. So these kind of things can happen. So only in these conditions words can be used. But then Brahman is nirguna. It doesn't have any attribute, so no word can be used through that. It is nishkriya. It has no action. So through action also you can't use any name give a name for Brahman. Then guna it is asanga, so no relationship is possible for Brahman, and then it is not a species at all. So words cannot be used at all. So nothing about Brahman can be stated through words. But then still, it is the Upanishads teach Brahman by a very ingenious method of adhyaropa and apavada. So here the Acharya says Sachidanandam Brahma Tivravegena Aharnisham Brahmakarvritya Bhavitam Chintitam Tadvastu Gnayam Aparoksha Gnayam is this Brahman Aparokshena Gnatum Yogyam. So it is possible to realize this Brahman as one's own self, to a real self. Yogyam Brahma Shigram Achirena Puman Bhavet. So without much delay, a person can realize this. So everything depends on the kind of input he invests in this kind of inquiry, in this sadhana. Pratyeka binna brahma bhavanaya purusho brahma rupa bhavati ityartha. So by constantly contemplating that he is Brahman, he ultimately becomes Brahman. So the contemplation part is what is highlighted in the analogy given there. He iti vidvat prasiddhau. Tatra sarvaloka prasiddham krishtantamaha brahmarakitavaditi. So this the Acharya says it is sarvaloka prasiddham. But then the sarvaloka prasiddham, of course, in the world also people might know about this. So in the world of Vedanta, it is definitely very popular. So brahmarakitavaditi. Brahmarena kutaschid Aniya Jivanneva Swakutyam Praveshitaha Yaha Kitaha Sa Yatha Bayat Brahmaradhyanena Brahmaraha Eva Bhavati Tadvaditi. So Brahmara is the wasp or that insect. Kutaschid Aniya, from somewhere it brings a prey. Jivanneva, so it doesn't kill it. Jivanneva Swakutyam, it deposits it in its nest or hole. Kutyam Praveshitaha Yaha Kitaha, that insect or that worm, Sa Yatha Bhayat Brahmaradhyanena Brahmaraha Eva Bhavati Tadaditi. So out of fear, the prey keeps thinking of that wasp itself, and then ultimately it becomes it itself gets transformed into a wasp. So this is the analogy given here. So in the same way, by constantly thinking about Brahman as oneself, one realizes it to be himself. Then moving on to the next shloka, Adrishyam Bhavarupam cha Sarvameva Chidatmakam Savadhanataya Nityam Swatmanam Bhavayet Buddha. So Adrishyam Bhavarupam cha. So Adrishyam is that which is not an object. Bhavarupam is what which is objectified. Cha Sarvameva Chidatmakam. All that is to be contemplated as Brahman, Chidatmakam, that is pure consciousness. Savadhanataya Nityam Swatmanam Bhavayet Buddha. So with lot of alertness, that is by not giving room to detrimental thoughts. This has to be carried out. So by doing this, a person will realize one's own true nature. So in the commentary, the Acharya says, Yadi Purva Shloka Ukta Drishtante Bhavana Palateva Anyasya Anyaptvam Bhavet Tarihi Brahma Vivartatvena Brahma Rupasya Vishwasya Brahma Bhavanaya Tadrupata Bhavediti Kimu Vaktavyam iti Ashayena Sarvatma Bhavanam Aha Adrishyaviti. So he gives a link to the earlier shloka. The question is, in the earlier shloka it was stated that in the analogy, the prey, that is the worm, by constantly thinking about the wasp, out of fear, it becomes the wasp itself. It gets transformed into the wasp itself. So the X becomes Y. But then here in the case of the world, it is Brahman itself which is appearing to be the world. So in the case of the wasp and the its prey, that is the insect, they are two different entities altogether. But still, one is able to become the other. Whereas here in the case of the world, which is world, it is actually Brahman itself which is appearing as the world. So what more to be can we say about the possibility of the world to be seen as or realized as Brahman? So by world, we have to consider that the body-mind complex also is a part of the world, and the whole world, which is the outside world, which is of Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha, including the body-mind complex, is actually Brahman alone appearing as that. So the reverse thing has to happen now. first what has happened out of ignorance, the rope is being seen as a snake, but now it has to be, the snake has, by inquiry, the snake has to be seen as non-different from the rope. That is, one has to see that the snake does not have an existence. That is, the superimposed snake does not have an existence apart from the rope. So that is the idea. Brahma rupasya vishwasya brahma bhavanaya tadrupata bhavediti kimu vaktavyam iti ashayana sarvatma bhavana maha adrishyamiti. So here what has to be done is sarvatma bhava, that I am everything, I am all. The sarvam kalvidam brahma, or sarvoham, anandoham, or shivoham, samastoham, brahmaivaham. So these kind of passage sentences are very, very helpful in this contemplation. So here now he gives the meaning of the word by word meaning of the shloka. Adrishyam. Adrishyam means paroksham, that is that which is not directly perceived by us. So adrishyam is, paroksham is not that is directly perceived by us, because the means of perception, that is the eye, the ear, the skin, the taste and all that, they have got some limitation. So beyond the range, whatever does not come within their range, it cannot, they cannot perceive. But then it is not that there's nothing existing beyond that. So the adrishyam means that which is not within the range of perception. And also adrishyam can also mean the causal state. That is the world which is seen now as a physical world, as the world that is perceptible. It has got a causal state also, which is very, very subtle. That is abhyakta, mahatya, panchabhutas and all that. That is pancha sukshma bhutas and all that. Up to mula prakriti, those are all adrishyam to us. But then that comes under the causal category, whereas the effect, that is the karyam, is the stula prapancha that we experience through our senses. So that is called, so here the drishyam and adrishyam can be seen to be these two, that is the unseen or the imperceptible causal state and the perceptible effect state. So this can be said to be adrishyam and bhavarupa. Then pratyaksham cha sarvam, bhavarupam is pratyaksham, adrishyam is paroksham. Sarvam Vishwam. So the entire world consists of these two categories. That is the patently seen objectified world and the subtle or the unseen causal state of it. But then all these things, this whole thing comes under the Mandukya. In the Mandukya scheme, these two things, that is the adrishyam and bhavarupam, they are categorized in the three states, that is the waking, dream and deep sleep. So in the deep sleep, that is in the cosmic level, it is called Ishvara, which is the seed, that is a causal form. And in the swapna is equated to the subtle form, and the gross form is the waking. So the subtle and the gross, these two are actually drishyam. It is not adrishyam, that is bhavarupam in this terminology. And adrishyam is the causal or the seed form, that is the sushupti avastha. So from the Mandukya we can see that way. And in the Kenopanishad we have got another category, another type of bifurcation, that is vidita and avidita. Vidita is the perceptible and the objectifiable world that is experienced by us, and avidita is the causal state of the experienced world. So causal state is avidita, that is not known. Vidita is that which is known. Adrishyam, paroksham, bhavarupam is pratyaksham, cha sarvam vishwam. Yadva adrishyam drashtr rupam, bhavarupam drishyam. Chakarat darshanam. So he is giving another interpretation to these two terms, adrishyam and drishyam. Adrishyam is drashtra rupam, that is the subject. The subject is the one who knows the object through the means that he has at his disposal, that is the pramana. So pramatru is drashtra here. Drishyam is the prameya, and darshanam is the pramana. But then there is no direct word for the darshanam, that is the third thing. So the Acharya says Adrishyam Bhavarupam Cha. That Chakara is now given the status of Darshanam. So, Drashtru, Darshanam, and Drishyam. So, Drashtru, Drishya, Darshanam, this is called Triputi. So, the seer, that is the knower, that is the Pramatru. Then, Bhavarup, so that is called Adrishyam because the Pramatru is not a object for himself. So, he himself is the one who initiates this whole act of knowing something through the pramana, that is the sense organs. So here he remains as the one which is not objectified, and the objectified thing is the part is the drishyam, that is bhavarupam, and darshanam is the act of accomplishing this knowing something. So these three. So now the idea is etat sarvam triputyatmakam jagate bhrantya atmabhinnatvena bhasamanamapi chidatmakam nirvishesha spurna matra swarupam swatmanameva buddha advaita jnana nishtaha savadhanataya sthirabhritya nityam bhavayet sakalamidam ahamcha brahmaiva iti sarvada pashyedityastha. So here the practice is being so nicely shown here. So here the aspirant has to constantly very consciously do this the Triputi. He has to make the Triputi. He has to Brahma Karana. That is, Triputi has to be made into Brahman. That is, the Triputi has to be seen as non-different from Brahman or Brahman itself. Just like the bangle, ring, and chain are seen to be gold itself. Here also, the Pramatru, the Pramanam, and Prameyam has to be seen as Brahman itself, pure consciousness itself. Etat sarvam triputyatmakam jagate, the whole world which is nothing but this Triputi only, because the moment we talk about the world, we have to bring in this Triputi, the seer, the seeing, and the seen. Jagate Brantya Atma Bhinnatvena Bhasamanam. So out of Brahma, he thinks these three are different. That is, I am different, the seen is different, and the seeing is different. My sense organs are different, I am different, and the act of seeing is different, and the what is seen is different. So this kind of thing is because of ignorance. That is, Ajnanam of the Atman is the Avarana part of it, and the Vikshepa part of it is that Ajnanam itself becomes the projects itself into these divisions. So the dividing or the projecting or the breaking down into many segments is the work of the Vikshepa, whereas the Avarana is the subtle part of it. So Bhasamanam Chidatmakam, even though these are seen as different, three different things, they are all actually Chit Surupam only. The bangle, chain, and ring, they are all seen as different only, but then through analysis one will know that they are nothing but gold alone. Chidatmakam nirvishesha spurana matram swarupam. So it is pure consciousness, which is undying consciousness. There is no rising, there is no udaya, there is no astamana for that consciousness. That is we ourselves truly. Swatmanameva buddha advaita jnana nishtaha savadhanataya sthirabhritya nityam bhavayet. So this I am the pramana, I am the pramatru, I am the pramana, I am the prameya also. So this kind of contemplation, it has to be done constantly. So by whom? The Buddha. The sloka uses a very dignified word, knower. But then this Buddha is not yet Aparoksha Jnani. So still that word Buddha is used. So that's why the Acharya comments Advaita Jnana Nishtaha. So he is intent upon acquiring this knowledge. So that way he is called Buddha. Savadhanataya Sthirabhritya Nityam Bhavayet. So with a lot of alertness, he has to undergo this. He has to bring about this practice and put in place this practice. Sakalam idam ahamcha brahmaiva. So he is articulating also how it has to be done. Sakalam idam ahamcha brahmaiva. So the everything idam ahamcha brahmaiva. Idam is that which is distinct from me. That is the pramanam and the prameya, and the pramatru is aham. So now what he has to contemplate is everything that is distinct from me and everything that is me, that is the egoistic me, everything is Brahman alone. It is sarvada bhavaya pashyat ityartha. So in this articulation, sakalam idam aham cha brahma, there are two popular passages or sentences of the Mahavakyas. Aham Brahmasmi is there and Sarvam Kalvitam Brahma is there. So both of them, these are there. Sakalam idam aham cha brahmaiva. Actually, in one Purana, I think it is in Vishnu Purana, there is a Yama Gita where Yama instructs his men not to go anywhere near those people who have this state of knowledge. Sakalam idam aham cha Vasudeva. That kind of thing comes there. So here we will end this session. Sriharim Paramanandam Upadeshtaramishwaram Vyapakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namamyaham Aparokṣānubhūti Prochate Mokṣasiddhaye Sadbhireva Prayatnena Vikshaniya Muhurmuhu Shastram Sharirami-mamsa Devastu Parameshwaraha Acharya Shankaracharya Santume Janma Janmani Om Tat Sat.